Thea, hello.
Hello.
I'm here with my friend Thea.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
I'm excited. I'm excited to learn about you.
Yes, I'm here. I'm here for it.
Yeah. Well, you're so wonderful.
Thank you.
We've become friends of, I guess, a few years ago now.
Yeah. Quite a few years, probably. Huh?
Yeah. And then the more I talk to you, the more interesting that you are. You are a entrepreneur. You are a recording artist. You are a musician. You are a dancer.
Yes.
And you own several businesses, I guess.
Yeah. So I try to do a little bit of everything, which I guess isn't always a good thing, but you know.
Nice. Well, can we talk about your music?
Absolutely. I would love that.
Okay. I don't know anything about music, but I did have some questions about music that I formulated, and then I took away half of them because I'm like, these are weird questions to ask somebody. So even if these are still kind of weird, bear with me a little bit.
I'll answer it the best I can. So.
All right. Why do you create music?
I create music, and this is how it started, and it's still true to this day, because for me, it's like a form of therapy, you know? It's an outlet, and I've always loved music, even back before I created it. It was, I was dancing to it and always listening to it, crying to it, whatever it might be. And so whenever I started singing and writing, it was like another creative like outlet that I could release, and all these like built up emotions from life, and just kind of get it out into paper, into a form of art that makes it feel like meaningful, I guess, Okay. So that's the big, overall reason as to why I create it.
Yeah. Well, you sent over your bio, and I had already listened to some of your music, but it's been fun to really dive in and see your stuff. What would you say is the genre?
So it's...
Because I think it's unique, right?
Yeah. So like when I first started, I was in R&B and pop, and I think I was listening to a lot of that kind of music at that point too. And I've always loved R&B and have like those soul influences. And so, I was in that avenue at first, and then I made the switch over to country because I really love the like storytelling aspect of country music, and just the songwriting aspect of it. And then I always thought that I couldn't be a country artist because at that point I had only heard like traditional, almost like honky tonk country, and I knew that wasn't me. But I'm from Louisiana, so we have our own version of country. We call it Cajun, but and so whenever I made the switch and realized that there was a lot more in that whole realm of music than I had realized, and I really fell in love with that style of music again, and started getting to create it. And so that's kind of like where I'm at now, where I think of it as like country soul. Mm-hmm. I call it musical jambalaya. I just put a little bit of this, a little bit of that, all the good stuff in it until it sounds right. And every song is a little different. Some will lean more country, some will lean more pop, some will lean more like soul country, Yeah. So it just kind of depends on what that song baby needs, is how I like to think of it.
That's cool. So do you write the music first and then find words, or are you more doing, poetry? Are you pulling stuff from...
It's always different. So, like I'll have some songs where it's like I was going through it and, at the moment or whatever, and I just like write down lyrics or whatever it is, and then like sing it and kind of modify the lyrics to fit into whatever melody I'm coming up with. And then sometimes it's like I'll hear a beat or a guitar riff or something, and that will inspire me to write, and I'll just start humming nonsense or singing along, and then eventually put words to it as well. So it just kind of depends. Sometimes I just randomly start singing something and it's like not inspired by either route, and it's just for some reason like this melody and lyric comes to me, and then I make a whole song around it. Mm-hmm. So it's just like when inspiration hits, you just kind of ride the wave, I guess.
Yeah. Well, so what is the difference between music and the music industry? So I guess the music industry is you have to make music that most people want to buy, but most people are dumb, like, right? And have no taste.
Yeah, well, and or like they maybe just don't even know what their taste is. I feel like I'm realizing that there's so many people who don't listen to music like frequently, like I've always listened to music 24/7. I think it's probably a way of avoiding all the thoughts, in your mind or whatever it is. It's like an escape from reality, which is probably not always the best thing. But some people don't put on music 24/7 like me. So I'm like, okay, they maybe just haven't explored it as much to even know what really their taste is. And so they listen to what's on the radio. And that's something, it's, mainstream music is just something that's more palatable to a broad audience, like a mass majority of people. So it's less risky, it's less out of the box because they're wanting more people to like it. And so, there's, I guess, a beauty in that in some sense. But then it's also like what I love about music and being able to create it is to be able to, get out of that box and try to make things that are true to me and true to my style. And maybe that haven't been done yet because there's so many songs. I think it's like 60,000 songs or something are released on Spotify daily, and so it's like, it's so easy for people to create music and release it now that it's almost like, watered down, like the market is just oversaturated and there's a lot of people creating stuff and some of it's great, some of them not probably, so just trying to stand out in some way, but in a way that's like authentic to me. But being in the music industry, it's like that constant battle of, it's the machine basically that you're at war with, of like, okay, well, if I, make this song how I feel is the best way for it, but then it doesn't get any traction, then it's a wasted investment, a wasted time, and so it's finding that balance, I guess, and it's difficult.
Yeah. So how did you get into the industry side of it, apart from you yourself just making music?
Yeah, so when I first started, it was just an expensive hobby, and I was like, oh, I guess I'm not that bad at singing, and so just started flying to LA and recording songs and writing more and recording. And then I had released one called Pain Made Me, which is the one about my dad, and it was like the first really serious song, and vulnerable song that I had put out. And I was really nervous about it. I remember I almost didn't because I was so nervous about what my family would think, and because still to this day, there's many of them that don't like to open up about our childhood and things that have happened. If they could forget it, they would. And so I was nervous about that, and then I did. And the owner of the label that I was signed to reached out to me wanting to sign me because of that song, and he related to and really loved my songwriting and like the raw and realness of the song. And I remember I didn't respond for like a month because I was in recital season and I was busy, but then I also was thinking like, surely this guy doesn't want to sign me, like I don't know what I'm doing. And I just didn't. I had just figured out I could even sing and write, like much less doing it as a full-on career. But I know I'm a hard worker and, all of those things, and I'll figure it out. And so whenever I did finally reach back out and realize that they were serious and like they believed in, my talent and where this could go. And so then that's like basically how it became more than just a hobby that was expensive.
Well, now you said you were with a label before that company. Yeah. How did that happen?
Well, so no, that was the first.
Oh, that was your first label. Okay.
Yeah, before I was just doing it independently, and then now I'm not with a label again.
So someone heard it, I guess, on YouTube or something?
Yeah, so I released it, and I had posted it on LinkedIn, and we were friends on LinkedIn because I'd met him through my ex-husband. And so, like, we were all connected, and I think they maybe had similar interest in business or something at some point. And so he had saw me post the song whenever I had shared it on my LinkedIn, which is so funny because you would never think to share music on LinkedIn. And maybe that's something I need to start doing again. I haven't done it in a while. And so he had saw it there, and apparently he had reached out to my ex first, I think to be respectful, and he didn't realize that we weren't together anymore. And so whenever he didn't respond, for a while, then he realized, that was the case, and was like, oh, okay, I need to reach out to her directly. And, and so he did. And of course, I'm a female too, so it's like I have trust issues in general. So I think like at first that was part of my like, it's like you just never know. And then once I actually had the conversation with them and then met with them, I realized, like it was the real deal, and they really did like my music and believe it and wanted to, be a part of that journey. So, I'm grateful for all that they've contributed up to now. So,
wow, yeah, that's exciting. How long have you been with them?
I guess that was 20. I want to say it was like late no, that had to be 2021 because I didn't release my first song till the end of 2020. It's crazy how many years that's been. I mean, definitely like 3, maybe almost 4 years.
Yeah.
I was with them, you know?
Wow.
So.
That's so fat. That side is so interesting to
Yeah.
me because I don't know how everyone else's playlist is, but I
Yeah.
feel like I'll get a group of like 20 songs on my
Yeah.
playlist and I'll just play the same songs over and over and over and
Oh,
over.
same.
And then I'll get sick of them
Yeah.
and then I'll delete them all and
Yeah.
I'll get new songs. I wonder if
Oh,
everyone
I
else is
have
like that.
my playlist would make you sick. I think my everyday one is what I call it, but it's like my
My everyday
everyday.
one?
Yeah, and it's all over the place from, you know, happy to sad to country to pop to hip hop. You know, it has all the different things, just songs that I really like. And I listen to the, you know, the newest ones on repeat on there, but the whole playlist I think is 36 hours long right now. I need it, and I make new ones every year. But and then I have like a hip hop specific one and a jazz, dance music, contemporary dance music, and I mean I have so many playlists. It's crazy.
Are they public? People can subscribe to them?
Yeah.
That's kind of cool.
And I send them to my teachers and stuff too, because you know it's like owning a dance studio. You're always looking for music that's clean or that like would be good for a combo. And every week I teach a new combo, and I teach, you know, probably 17 different classes in a week. So it's like I need to have a lot of music, and I need it to make me want to dance, because if I'm not like feeling the song, then it's, you know, I'm tired, I'm getting old, you know. So some days I'm like, gosh, I don't know if I can
Put some Ella
like,
Fitzgerald
yeah,
on.
so I need the music
Slow it
like
down.
fuels me to go and dance even if
Oh,
I
I
am
see.
tired, you know. So
I see.
yeah.
Wow, that's cool. So what do you get out of music? Is it, you mentioned therapeutic in the beginning?
Oh yeah.
I heard a quote. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Let
no.
me finish asking the question. And by the
Yeah.
way, I'm not very good at this, so that's
Oh.
why I'll run over you. When you're talking.
No, I think that's great. Finish it, because that'll help
right.
me answer it.
All right, perfect. I heard a quote by Jerry Lee Lewis before he died, and he said, one of the things he said was that I know there's another song out there for me to discover.
Yeah.
And the way he used the word discover, it was just really interesting to me.
Yeah.
Is that this song exists somehow.
Yeah.
And like it's just these vibrations that in
Yeah.
your eardrum combined with this lyrics and this blah blah blah.
Yes.
And you put it together perfectly, and it's changed. It's, you know, something
Yeah.
different.
One, it's something that like can transcend through time, you know, like that's a part of what I love about it, is it's like a part of my legacy, you know, like long after I'm gone, now there is this part of me and this part of like, you know, my creativity, my brain, my experiences, like, you know, just things that only I could have thought of because only I lived the experiences that made me want to write those, you know, songs. And then, and so I think that's pretty cool, you know, because I've lost a lot of people in my life, and it's like you get to a point where you're like, man, I don't remember what their voice sounds like, or, you know, or like you forget certain aspects of them. So I think that's kind of cool to think that I'll be able to leave that behind, and like my kids, grandkids, you know, people even beyond that will be able to still, you know, utilize and get something from this art that I've created. Like it doesn't, so it's like I always say, turning pain into a purpose is like my biggest thing with why I create in general. And that's why I like to write songs that are real and raw. And so it's like it makes them have a bigger meaning and a bigger purpose. And so that's a part of it. But I think too, it's kind of cool as a listener even to be able to relate with other people and to hear the way they experience something that maybe I relate to and I experience too, but their perspective on it, or like, you know, how they're packaging that, how they're viewing it, or how it affected them, or, you know, so you don't feel alone. But it also like challenges me sometimes where I'm like, oh, that's a really good perspective to have on that situation. Like I could grow from that, you know, and maybe view my situation a little better in the future. And so I think that part is cool. And just anything creative, it's like when you think about it, it's your brain is coming up with it. And I feel like it's all God inspired, you know, and he gives us talents for a reason. And to be able to like use that and to create and put something into the world that never existed before, it's kind of cool.
That's very cool. That's very cool.
Yeah.
Yes, I definitely believe it. He's the architect of reality.
Yeah.
I mean, it didn't exist.
Yes.
He knew about it existing before
He's
we
the
did.
ultimate creator.
Wow. I can relate a little bit with inventing the things that I create. Because because there's two things I have. There's a few things I have, but one of the things in my mind, I'm like, this is so fascinating.
Yeah.
This is so amazing. I think this could change the
Yeah.
world. And then I'll post it online, and then it'll get like a few thousand views.
Yeah.
But then I'll post one of my other things, like I have invention where it deploys out the back of your truck, and I picked up a gun safe with it and puts it in the bed of the truck, whatever. This little thing, which is not that amazing, but that I get 8 million views on that.
It's crazy. Yeah,
so
it's wild.
like they are interested in things I'm not interested in. And I guess it's like, which one of us, music. I feel like there's a battle, like which one of us should cave. And I think it should be them.
Yeah. Right.
So well, I guess it's the same, because you don't create music that you think is bad. You're never like, this is bad, let me put it in the world. Right?
Yeah. But I will say, it's like so many artists have said that like they create music for them, and that they're like creating music that they love, and that's whenever it like took off. And I think there's something that, you know, like I think it's important to do both, maybe in some sense, because you learn from both. So like I've learned a lot about music in general just by creating music that wasn't necessarily, you know, the genre or the style that like I wanted to, but it's now I have a better understanding of what I don't like and what I do like, and why I like and don't like both. And then also it's like makes me a more versatile writer, you know, an artist in general, because like I don't have to just write country. I can write pop, I can write R&B, and I have experience in all of those. But I think it's like, I guess neither has to cave. It's just which one is leading the ship. And I think the one leading the ship should be you creating the things that you find value in and that you think are important. And I'll never understand why, because I feel that same way with music, where it's like the songs that I think have the most meaning and I like know would touch the most people are the ones that like I post and it's no one comments, you know, or, you know, and maybe they're just sick of seeing my face. I don't know, but
I doubt that.
You never know these days. It feels like that sometimes, but, you know, or maybe it's just not as good as I think it is and I'm delusional, you know, who knows? But it's, I feel that way a lot. And I think a lot of artists do too, because it's just social media, man. I hate it.
And I imagine that it would have to be also timing in a way, because there's like if we found a Janis Joplin record today and it probably wouldn't be number one just because as a society, for whatever reason, I don't know if it's that industry, we just have to continually keep moving in a direction, which is so odd to me. But no, there is obviously classic. I mean, there's obviously songs that it's like, all right, this is a masterpiece. This is part of our life or whatever. But in general, everyone seems like the majority as a whole is looking at the top 100 list, and that is probably put out by people who need to make money off of the ones on that list, right?
And that's really what it boils down to, is like the songs that make it huge. It's not necessarily because they're good, and a lot of times I hear some of the songs and I'm like, this is actually not very good at all, you know. It's like compared to, I know artists that are independent artists that make songs that are a million times better than some of the songs that will be charting, but they just don't have $1 million label funds behind them. So they can you have to get paid to get anything on the radio. And, you know, to that extent, it's like, no matter how good it does on the, you know, social media or on the streaming platforms and whatever, like there's all these hoops that they want you to jump through, you know, and that's something that, I've made where it's not a goal of mine, because like, I don't know, that just feels not genuine. So I'm like, I just want people to hear my songs because I want them to have an impact, because I think they can. And like I said, then that gives my pain a purpose and the things I went through a purpose. But if I get to just keep doing it and no one listens to them, you know, then I guess that's fine too. As long as I'm happy and proud of like what I'm creating, then at the end of the day, I'm happy with that, you know? So it's, and that's something I have to remind myself. You know, you have to recenter your focus every now and then and remind yourself, like, I'm not doing it for this. I'm doing it for this, for my heart, you know?
I love that.
So, yeah.
I love that. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
So, you also dance?
Yes.
Were you just naturally talented with that, or you?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I was born dancing, I feel like. You know, I started 2.5, and so it feels like basically I hopped out the womb and I was like, you know, dug in or something. Just kidding, probably not. But, but I've always loved dance, and it's just been like a passion of mine. And all of my siblings, like my sisters, danced too, like throughout our childhood.
What type?
It was like ballet, tap, jazz, hip hop, like the standard styles of dance. And so the years that we could afford it, we would dance. And so it was like, there was a few years growing up that we did. And then when I really think about it, majority of the years we really didn't, because I'm one of 11 kids. So, and we were really poor. So, but every time that we wouldn't dance, I would miss it like crazy. And I would go watch friends at dance recitals, and I would cry my eyes out because I just wanted so bad to perform. And I think ultimately I'm a performer at heart. Like, I do love performing, and that's part of what I like about music too. But my siblings, it didn't really bother them much, to not be able to dance. And so I think that was when I realized, like, okay, this is something I need to do. Like, it's not going to just go away, this passion and this love for it. It's going to haunt me the rest of my life if I don't do something with it,
Yeah. And so you've also turned that into a business.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Which was, I never thought that, like, I didn't even think I was going to be a good teacher, I was dancing professionally, and then I got pregnant. And long story short, it's like, realized that I was teaching privates on the side, like teaching kids technique and stuff like that, and realized that I was good at teaching, and that because I've always been kind of a nerd, and I loved biology, chemistry, math, and tutored it, all throughout high school and college to make extra money and stuff. So I have a really good understanding of like the body and the way it works, and so I just never thought about the fact that would help me with being able to teach kids, because I can understand why they need to activate this muscle to externally rotate here, or like, and then be able to translate that to them in a way that they can understand, to where then they know what they need to do. And so I feel like that's made me a better instructor, because a lot of times they're just like yelled at not at my studio, of course, but I've seen it happen, and I've had it happen where, you're just yelled at all these, point your feet or do this and whatever, but no one's explaining to you what that even means, or how to do that, and what muscle you need to activate to do that. And so I've found like really, I guess, my path in teaching, and what makes me different in that and makes me good at it is my ability to, understand it. And that's also what makes me, if I ever get bored or like I don't feel like teaching, I go do more research or training, and then I'm like fired up, I'm ready to go. It's just learning makes me excited for some reason. But
that sounds amazing. For an amazing school. Let's do a plug for your school. Where's your school? Lafayette? It's
in Youngsville, so which is right outside of Lafayette. It's like a suburb. So it's in Youngsville, Louisiana, right in the heart of Youngsville.
Name of it?
So I love it. And
what's the name?
It's Thea's Dance Academy.
Thea Dance Academy? Got a website?
It's theasdanceacademy.com. And so it's just my name, apostrophe. Well, I guess it doesn't have the apostrophe in the website address.
All right, we'll put it on the screen, and
we'll link that.
She has a website. Trust her.
Yes.
So cool. I'd send my kid to your school. You sound like you're really passionate about it.
So I am, cool. And it's like I'm passionate about making it a safe like place for kids. Because dance was my escape from a lot of like horrible things growing up. So ultimately, it's like that's why I've built TDA and why my passion has remained in it, because dance parents, it's there's been many years where I'm like, I don't know if I could do this anymore, and you love the kids so much, and people use you, and the second they don't get what they want, or you're bending over backwards, but it's just not quite backwards enough, just all the things, and it's hard. And it's especially for a people pleaser like me. And so it wore at me and my health, and like, and I got into a point where like I hated it. And so then I started, learning boundaries and putting them in place and not letting people walk over me anymore. And so now I feel like I have a really good, healthy environment where like not only my faculty is all on the same board, like, they understand and they know if they are not in alignment with like keeping this environment, then there's another studio they can go to. It's just not mine, because it's like I've realized that my job is to protect the culture that I've created, and that's the most important thing to me, because nothing is worth me losing my passion and hating what I love, and nothing is worth jeopardizing like everything that I've worked my butt off for, years. We're going into year 11 right now, to create. So, I'd rather have less students than have more and people that just aren't in alignment with, what I'm trying to create. So
I love that.
Yeah.
I guess you handle all of your own business. I mean,
Yeah. So I have an assistant and office manager. So she works in the office with me 3 days a week. So that is very helpful. And that allows me to not have to be in the office as much, but I think it's important to always kind of as a business owner, you do have to always stay on the ins and outs, but it gives me more time to be creative. So I'm grateful for that. And she cares about the kids in the studio just as much as I do. And just a very trustworthy, hardworking person. So I feel like she was definitely a godsend. And 2 of her daughters actually dance with me. That's how we even met. And so, that's been
You
great.
Do all of the hiring and the firing? You interview people?
Yes. Which is my least favorite part, but
me too. Me too.
Yeah.
Jessica will tell me you need to get rid of this person, and I'm like, I want everybody to like me. I have this disease where everybody has to like me.
Yeah, same. It's people pleasing.
I don't know, but in a business, the sooner you can cut them loose, the better.
Yeah.
And I know that, and it's so not fair to everyone else, and it's not fair for everything that you've worked for, and it's not fair to your future self.
Yep.
To if it's just not going to work out. So.
And I've just learned I've always just give way too many chances. So now it's like making my expectations and the rules and the do's and don'ts very clear on the front end has helped a lot, and then also staying on top of it.
Yeah.
So that way, if anything isn't in alignment, then I nip it in the bud, and before it ever gets to that point, and then I can see, and then trusting my gut, because it's every time I've hired someone and I had a gut feeling, and my assistant, she also has a very strong intuition too. And I've always been oh, maybe it's PTSD and I'm overthinking it and whatever. And every single time it never fails that person, their colors, slowly show. And then it's I end up losing a ton of clients because of, their behavior and things like that. And so now I'm learning no, just stop overworking so much to where you're so overwhelmed that you just are accepting, people just because you need help,
right.
And so I've finally gotten to a place where I feel like I have a little better balance, so I can take the time when I need to hire instead of feeling so desperate that I'm well, they're really passionate and they want the job, so great, you're hired. you know? So I've learned a lot when it comes to that over the years. But
it's amazing, and that's not stuff you learn in a book. That's true wisdom.
Yeah, and life experience. Yeah.
Yes, and you talk to other entrepreneurs, and we've all ended up at the same place. We all understand all the things that you're saying right now, which is cool.
And it's owning a business is difficult. I feel like any business for sure, but especially one where you deal with the public, face to face on a daily basis. It's very challenging. So
well, I'm really proud of you.
Thank you.
I think you got it going on, and I love that you take care of your own business too, and that you're smart and you're in that. That's super cool.
Thank you.
And I know that doesn't come easy. That's my mom, she was an entrepreneur. She didn't have any education. She a self-taught, learned, got accounting software and just got into it. Amazing. And she actually learned business, and she's very good at it.
Wow.
And I think she just anyway, I'm very proud of my mom too. So I always
that's
like
awesome.
to say that. So I'm not, I guess school, you can learn knowledge, but then when you get in the real world, it has to convert into wisdom.
Yes.
It has to go through the filter of life.
And you
the
have to be able to apply it. Yeah.
And how does it really apply?
Yeah.
And me, definitely ego.
Yeah.
I thought that was the person to hire. I fought for this person, and now I have to let him go, and I have to say I was wrong, and that's part of it.
Well, and I think that's what makes a good business owner too, is someone who is willing, and just a good person in general, honestly, but somebody who can accept when they're wrong and not let ego get in the way, and then learn from it, because no one's perfect. It doesn't matter if you've been in business your entire life. It's there's always going to be more room for growth and to learn more and to better your service or whatever it is that you're providing. And I think the second we think we know it all is the second we failed, and so, because it's there's never, we're not like a robot, there's never going to be a person, I feel that just knows everything except for Jesus.
That's right. Well,
So
you sent your bio to me,
yeah,
and I was like, I mean, your surface is very intriguing, and I want to let you
yeah,
share that story, and we're gonna post it
yeah.
with this video with the
Okay,
content. But
awesome.
I wanted to first highlight
Yeah,
you and just show. I mean, you just seem like a healed person, and you just seem like, I mean, in the thick of it, it probably doesn't seem like it, but from
yeah,
my perspective, you're a singer and you're a
yeah,
dancer, and that's how
yeah,
you're making a life and a
yeah,
living, and that's really cool.
yeah.
So, and I just think it's really cool. And
Thank you.
so, if you wouldn't mind sharing how you got
Yeah,
here, you mentioned a few things there. Large family, 11
yeah,
kids. Were you
yeah.
the youngest?
No, I'm the middle actually. Yeah, so I'm one of 11 kids, and I have three younger sisters, three older sisters. I have to like visualize it to even two younger brothers and two older brothers. So I'm like epitome of the middle child. But I like to joke that when you have that many kids, you're all neglected. So there's no middle child syndrome, because everyone's just figuring it out and, making sure that we all stay alive kind of thing. But yeah, so I grew up I was born in Franklin, which is, I guess, like an hour or so from Lafayette area. It's kind of closer to New Orleans than Lafayette is. Lived there till I was about 3. And then we moved around a lot, and then we ended up like in St. Martinville area, and that's like where I spent most of my childhood. And yeah, so we were very poor. We lived in a trailer for most of our life. We even lived in a camper for quite a few years, with all those kids.
11 kids.
Yeah, yeah, and the camper was just a normal camper, but the trailer that we lived in was so bad off. It had like holes in the floor, and we would use the oven for a heater in the winter, like, 'cause we didn't have a heater, so we would just open the oven. And then we had like wall AC units for summer, and the doors didn't lock, and so we'd have homeless people like breaking in. I guess not breaking in because they didn't have to break in, they just walk in. Like things like that. And but then no one ever knew that we were poor because we grew up very like hush hush, don't tell anyone anything, like any of the abuse or anything that was happening. It's like we weren't allowed to talk about it. And my dad made sure we were scared of social services because they would get called on us a lot. And so, like, we'd go to church and we'd pretend to be the happy family, and we'd wear hand-me-downs. And I loved making clothes, so I would find things and sew them together and whatever. And so you just get creative with those kind of things. And we knew how to take care of ourselves, like, and put ourselves together and clean up nice, I guess you could say. But my dad was very abusive in a lot of different ways. And
Sorry to hear that.
but like, it's crazy because it's at that time I didn't know that wasn't normal. It's like you just know what you're experiencing, but he made sure that we were very sheltered, and like we weren't allowed to sleep at other people's houses and things like that. And I think now it was because he knew the more we would be around other people or see how life is, or like, one, we might see that what we were experiencing wasn't right and wasn't normal, but two, it would give us an opportunity to possibly tell and and break that facade that we were living under. And so then he went to prison when I've always thought I was 13 when this happened, but it all was within. It's like he got arrested for it. He like molested my cousin who was a child on Father's Day in 2010. And then it was like a 6 or 7 year trial, and it was like on and off, and we were running from the cops with him for a little while when my mom like took him back. And then it was like all this stuff, and then it went to trial, and then he almost got convicted, I think, at one point, and then they did a retrial. So it's in my brain. It's kind of hard to remember what age exactly it was.
So he was arrested for abusing your cousin, and then he got out on bail, or?
Well, he stayed in. He was only sentenced to 3 years, I think it was 3 or 4 years, something like that. So he went in. It was sometime around my freshman year, so I believe I was 15-ish when he actually went to jail. And so that's the only reason we went back to public school, because we were homeschooled. Like, we used to go to public school until I was in 1st or 2nd grade. And then he put us in homeschool because basically social services and was getting involved in stuff. So you can only send your kids with bruises all over their body so many times where they're like, okay, they didn't fall down the stairs. Like, we're not, So then he took us out, put us in homeschool. And then we went back because I think the trial was going on, is what I was told, at least. And so I went back for my freshman year. And then I believe it was sometime within that year, I think it was the March of that year, that he was actually sentenced. And at this point, he had, we were brainwashed, and, he had convinced us that she was lying about it.
But you knew the truth.
Yeah, but it's like, you can't speak the truth in that kind of environment. You're scared for your life. So then there was a lot of things that I hadn't like talked about or like admitted that had happened to me or like other siblings at that point, because we weren't allowed to talk about things. And so I think it's crazy how your brain can literally, you even convince your own self that certain things, don't happen until you're out of it. And it's safe to even accept the reality, and be honest with yourself about it, much less other people. And it wasn't safe to do that at that point, So then he went to prison, and my mom stayed with him for, I believe it was 2 years into him being in prison. So she would bring us like every weekend to go visit him. And I hated it. And then finally her family members convinced her that it was safe for her to leave him, and because he had tried to kill her a few times. I mean, I've seen him like put a gun in her mouth and pull the trigger, and it was just Russian roulette. Like the bullet happened to not be in that chamber, or beat her over the head with like a pan from the oven, and she like burns everywhere, and broke her ankle, made us tell people she fell down the stairs. Just like always different things. So she definitely got the brunt of the abuse and the worst end of it. And so I think it was like in a sick way she loved him. I do believe that. But I think when you're in that kind of twisted relationship, it's it's, you're not thinking straight,
Where did she meet him?
I think they met at church or something in Franklin, and then they got married. I want to say it was 6 weeks after they met, which is, if you look into narcissist and abusive partners and relationships, it's a very common theme, where it's not saying that that's always the case when people rush, but it is definitely a very like common identifier of those kind of relationships, because they want to get you trapped and then make you have a bunch of kids. And then she wasn't allowed to work, and so she couldn't fend for herself. He made sure that she didn't feel capable of that, and he would tell us that, like, if she caught him cheating or something, he would say that she was demon possessed and all these things, and take us away from the house and unplug the vehicle so she couldn't leave. And so he would do things like that, where it kind of probably made her feel paralyzed, or made her feel like she couldn't leave. So
he would even use the church, saying like that she was demon possessed.
Oh yeah, he would make us like pray over her and stuff, like, and then he would anytime he would get caught for anything, or like, after he would beat us or her, he would cry, and pray with us. And he definitely used religion to manipulate like our whole childhood, so it's wild. And just like a testament of God in general, that like all of us are even believers still, and are where we are, because normally you end up running the opposite way. And I had my times in life where I feel like I was doing everything but what God wanted me to do, and that was probably a big part of it. But so he used all of that, and then she finally left, and then whenever he got out of prison, then he just, the harassment started up again, and he kept showing up at the house and threatening to kill himself and all of those things. And so at some point, when they do it so many times, you stop believing it. And then he eventually did. And
he eventually did what?
He committed suicide. So I'm sorry, like, I forget that maybe you don't know these things, so it's like in my brain everyone knows, but it's but yeah, so he did whenever I was 19. And he like texted us all, "I love you and forgive you," and none of us texted him back, because
he said he forgave you.
Yeah. And it was always like bringing us in the middle of him and my mom's fights, and like all the things. And at this point, we were just so sick of it, or like trying to make us believe that he was still denying that he ever did what he did. And to my cousin, or to all the things. And I know that he believed it. I think he was, I don't know if it's a sociopath or what it is. He was something, but it wasn't right. And so, yeah, so he sent us that, and it was just like always the guilt on us, like, and so we didn't respond, and then he took his life that night, and the next day my brother he did a wellness check or called for a wellness check, and they can't, I guess, break into a home for that. So if the doors aren't unlocked, they said they couldn't go in. So then he knew where the key was, and, he went in, he was the one who found him. So yeah, and it was, it's such a difficult, like grief process. I feel like even still to this day, because it's like, I feel like I'm healed, but I'm also still healing, because it's so complex, especially in something like that, where they're your abuser and they've abused so many people that you love and they've done so many horrible things, but then he's like still my dad. And he's still, there were also those great moments where he would be a good dad. And those are the things that I guess you cling on to. So you try to remember. So you still love them at the end of the day. And like, I always hoped that he would change. Like, I held on to that for a long time. So I think like going through the grief, it was confusing, because it's like, I didn't know how I felt. So I just didn't even know how to process it or how to deal with it. And also felt like I wasn't allowed to, because our whole life, it was like, we were just taught our feelings didn't matter and we weren't allowed to express them. And if you did, then you were weak. And so it's like, you learn to just like suppress it all. And but then a few years after that, it just like all was becoming like so much, and I was just like crying for every little thing. And I was just like, okay, I think I need to go and like to therapy and, work through this stuff, because I don't even know how to process it. I don't even know how I feel. Like, I couldn't put it into words. I was just confused, And so I started working through the layers of that and like each emotion, and accepting that each of those emotions can coexist. Like, you don't have to feel just one way about this person. Like, sometimes the situation is so messed up that there are so many different emotions, because it's not how God intended it to be. And that's what sin is, and the consequence of that and of evil in this world, is that things are not the way they're intended to be. So sometimes it doesn't really make sense, and it makes it really difficult to process and to go through. And so it's like, and I still have to work on that on a daily basis, of like accepting that I feel the way I feel and that it's okay, in different situations, and allowing myself to actually feel it and not like immediately pushing it down, because, over time that's the way I was taught to be. And, it's like you go into autopilot. And so, sorry, I feel like that was a very long-winded answer.
No, that was wonderful. It's heartbreaking, first of all, and you definitely didn't deserve that, that stuff. And you're very strong, very, very strong. I don't know.
Thank you.
I don't know it. I don't know a lot of people who've been abused. I mean, I know it's much more common than we realize, but I know a lot of times they end up a lot of times on drugs or taking their own life or following. But to see you as such a thriving, strong person, and I really think you're a very strong person.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's like, it's been my fuel to be. I was just having a conversation with one of my siblings last night about this, and because slowly, like, some of them are opening up and like accepting, the reality. And I think like it's important to have something that's fueling you to not be like those people. And I don't think we didn't have a good example of like what a dad, should be, and what parents should be in general, and like, how to even be a parent, or how to like speak to kids, or how to be a good human in society even. But I had a really great example of what not to be. And that's a place to start, because if you know what not to be, then you can just like, makes it a little easier to figure out what to be, along with, like following the word of God and like, finding faith. But so it's like, I do my best to just do anything but replicate the childhood that I had for my daughter. And, and so it's like, that's really important to me, that she understands her worth and her boundaries, and that she has permission to say yes or no in any situation in life, and that she doesn't have to do things that she doesn't feel comfortable doing, and that she has she's the creator of her future, and like she can create a life that she wants, and it doesn't have to be even like the life that I'm creating right now. For hers can be completely different if she wants it to be, and she's allowed to feel emotions, and she's allowed to, just like express them, and encouraged to express them, and to feel safe to express them, and all of those things. And she's a great kid, so I feel like if I'm doing anything right, I think it's that, even though I'm a single parent, and it's, that isn't my intention and not what I like wanted, or don't want still, but I think I'd rather that than be in an unhealthy relationship, and her see me settling and being with someone who doesn't treat me well. And so, I think whenever the time comes, like, hopefully God will restore all the time that's lost, and hopefully she'll just remember those good years of a healthy relationship, and not like all the years, where it was, not that, but, so. Yeah.
So, I became a believer when I was like 23. I was kind of already an adult, and your story is way different, and it's amazing to me, and it tells me that you had a real experience with God in your life, even through all of that stuff, because it sounds like you even have forgiveness for him, the things that you're saying, and that's that's hard. That's hard.
It's a daily thing for sure, but I think it's, the saying, it's like unforgiveness is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. And it couldn't be more true. And I think, like, one, I'm not perfect, like I've sinned, I make mistakes all the time, and God forgives me. So I feel like, who am I to withhold forgiveness from other people? And I think our job as Christians is to be like the hands and feet of Jesus, basically. And so it's like, if he is offering and willing to forgive them, then I need to be able to do that and to show his love by forgiving them. And I'm only ruining my own life by holding on to bitterness and unforgiveness. And it's hard, like some days I have to be like, ooh, okay, God, I don't feel so forgiven right now. I feel like I want to, like not be forgiving. And you have to, like, just, it's a daily renewal of that, like, God, give me the strength today to forgive today, and then tomorrow I'm probably going to need it again. But, it's like a daily thing that you have to do, especially if that person is still around and still, offending you. But I think Jesus wants us to forgive, and God wants us to, like, extend that, because he knows how it affects you. And I think a lot of emotional, especially negative emotion and trauma and things, when you don't release it and give it to God, and like release it in the way of healthily expressing it, or release it as in like, God, you're in control, it affects you physically, with illnesses, and like just in your body. It's like energetically wise, it's like you don't realize how much that's affecting you as a person. And I feel like God created us in that way, so it's like, that's what helps me, and I also, like, I just know it's me holding on to it would do, it's like, for what? It's not like he's not losing sleep if I'm holding on to it. Yeah. Only I'm losing sleep, so yeah, that's kind of like how I think of it, I guess,
That's beautiful. I love that. I guess that's the process, that moment that we were saved, God made a legal decree about who we are, and everything about this world and his system is contrary to that. So God would say, because of what Christ did at the cross, we're now justified, and we're sons and daughters of God, and we are adopted into the family of God, and we're the righteousness of God in Christ Jesus. And then everything else in this whole world wants to remove us from walking in that truth, and even our own failure wants us to get stuck in this idea that we're not who God said we were, that somehow God is a little happy with us some days and a little mad with us other days, and a little that little roller coasters. That's not true.
Yep.
That's not true.
Yeah. It's so true that like it's so true that that's not true. You know, like that, but we're conditioned to believe that. And I think it's like the more you get to know the heart of God, and and you build that relationship with him, you see that. And I think just like even as a kid, there were so many times where God was all I had, and so it was like we would just pray in the closet, and while he would have his rage episodes, and just different scenarios like that, where it was like literally I know that the only thing I had was God, and he was all I needed in that moment. And I do truly believe that everything that I have is from him, because like I couldn't have built all of these things on my own, and I don't think I'm responsible for any gift or talent that I have. Like that all comes from God, and if he didn't want me to have it tomorrow, he could take it away, and if and so I take it seriously too with like how I use those talents, and because it's like I'm just a steward of this gift, and it's his. Everything is his. And so I just I hope that I do a good job at being a steward, at the end of the day. But I know I'm not perfect in it, and but I think if you keep a relationship with God and you stay close enough, even if you're not living perfectly, it's like then you'll hear him and you'll feel him, and you'll just like in your heart, I think our gut is, and your intuition is, I believe the Holy Spirit.
Yes.
And it's like, and when the more in tune you are with that, and like with right and wrong, and like getting away from your phone and everything else and just spending time with God, the more in tune you can be with that, and hopefully be redirected anytime you are going in the wrong direction, before it has lasting consequences. It's, you can hopefully find that redirection, so, but.
I love that. That's deep. Have you ever released any like gospel music or Christian music?
I've written a lot of it, but I haven't released any, and that's something I've been like struggling with lately, because it's like, I love worship and I love writing worship songs, and but anytime like I've shared them with like people that I know within the church or whatever, I feel like it's always kind of been shot down, or it's been like, oh, sure, that's whatever. And there's a lot of church hurt, I guess, like where that stems from, or feeling like, oh, I'm not saved enough to lead worship or saved whatever enough. Like you're basically told that, but in different words, and those kind of industries, if we're being honest, it's like its own industry in a sense. And so I think like I can see myself eventually releasing a Christian song, but I also worry about it too, because Christians sometimes, don't always resemble Christ and the way they treat others. And I see the way friends that I have that are Christian artists, and the judgment, and like that they receive because they're considered a Christian artist. It's like I already feel like I'm hard enough on myself, so I feel like if I became a Christian artist and then I had all of that judgment, like,
just think of that.
That would be so difficult, and it's sad,
Just imagine that someone has a call on their heart to do something, but the religious spirit of others are hindering that. And can I tell you the truth? That is absolutely true. They are. That's how they are. Some of my friends, they're part of a church and singing. We just went out to this Best Dressed Gala, and we put pictures of and dude, they were getting so much hate for nothing. They did nothing, and that's gross. But they're like, oh yeah, we just ignore that. We just block those people and we ignore that. We know who we are, and God is a God of grace. And the song, the eternal, Amazing Grace, written by John Newton, a slave trader, trafficked in human beings, wrote that song, and that song is eternal, and it's lasting. I personally would love to hear what God has in you, because whatever I think we were talking about music success and what the industry wants and who they promote and who they don't, and what makes money and what doesn't. But I think something that God gives you and you give it back to him in that way, that's eternity, dude. That's eternal. And we've been talking about doing a worship night here in my gazebo.
Oh, I would love
like an acoustic.
If I'm invited.
Yes, like, of course you're invited. Of course you're invited. That I would love that so much. Yeah. And you could share some of the stuff you've written. That would be just amazing. That would be great. We could probably record it if you'd want to.
Yeah. Why not, right? Do a live version of it.
Okay. And if anyone gives you hate on the internet, I will fight them for you. You send me over there.
And I think, and it's like I try to be understanding too at the same point, because I think a lot of it is taught. But also it's pride, and it's like, I think when you think about it, the spirit, the religious spirit and all of that is just pride, and basically feeling like, oh, I'm this, holy, macho, righteous person, which also is an insecurity in them, and a not feeling like enough, so needing to pretend to be enough, or it's like there's so many.
The truth about yourself.
Yeah, and so it's like, and I think for some people, and this is in and outside of church, so it's like if it happens outside of church, of course it's going to happen inside too, because they're also just sinners, just like the rest of us. Like inside and outside, we're all sinners in need of a savior, and so it's like they're just putting down someone else makes them feel a little bit better, or like pointing out the sin in someone else makes their sin not feel so bad.
Like they didn't just yell at the waitress at the freaking restaurant.
Exactly. And so I think you can really, you see that a lot, and that's, I think, at the root of the issue. It's like there's always something spiritually going on. And so like if I felt really called, and God really, I've basically just been praying, I'm like, God, if you want me to be in ministry in any form, like you're gonna have to spell it out for me, like make it very clear. Otherwise I'll just keep doing ministry in the way that I'm doing it, and reaching people whenever those conversations come, or, like whenever he puts it on my heart, but not necessarily like in a church setting. But it's, I think God, he gives us a voice for a reason, and worship is, I think, ultimately what song, that was the first form of music, was worship, so it's, I think going back to the heart of that is, something I desire to do. But, it's, I guess I'll have a lot of experience by the time I do get to there, and, maybe that'll make for better, songs, because I'll have like knowledge from both ends of it, or,
You've seen the extremes of human depravity, like probably no one else I've ever known, especially if it was involving the church, and your dad was, I guess, sounds like he was involved in the church pretty heavily, but he was also using religion to control you and manipulate and hurt and harm. So you've seen all of that, and you still have grace, and you still are a believer. And I think, I've always thought you were a very bright light. Obviously you were supposed to be salt and light. The salt, if you think about the light, we can all see the light, right? But the salt is, it's consumed. You're devoured. It's almost like you're devoured before the world can see can understand your salt. And I feel like you've been devoured in a way that very, very few people have. And you're still salty. Right. You are, and the way you talk about your daughter and what you want her to be and who you want her to be, and your aspirations for God. So because I think it's like, I will say with writing and all of that too, something that has always been on my heart, and that I could see me doing as a writer and a singer, is like helping other artists write songs about their testimony or their story, and about, because I feel like there is this new wave in the world in general where people are starting to get vulnerable and like real, and they're craving authenticity, because there's so much nonsense that is, people are starting to really like crave that and want that, and so I feel like if nothing else, maybe that is a way that like God will use me, is to, because I've had so many experiences and all the different forms of trauma, that like I can relate to a lot of different people that most people maybe couldn't relate. And so with me being able to relate to them and knowing what it feels like, I can maybe help them put into words something that would be healing for them to like tell their story, And so maybe I end up doing it on the back end, like
more so than on the front end. I don't know. It's like I enjoy both sides. So I'm just like, here I am, God use me, right? So, yeah, that's kind of like one of my goals, I guess, is to be able to write in that capacity one day. So, yeah.
It's been so wonderful for me.
Yes, thank you.
It's cool. Yeah. Think so highly of you.
Thank you.
Okay. Do we have anything else to talk about? I mean,
yeah, I guess that's the gist of it. So,
well,
if people like music, go listen to my music. If you like dance.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited about our
Yeah.
worship night that we're going to do.
Yes.
And I know you're about to release some Christian music, which I'm excited about. Your
Yeah.
writing and some of that. You say you've written a
Yeah.
lot of that stuff already.
And I will say too, yes. And I also, I wrote a book. I'd never released it, but it's called Feel, Heal, Thrive. And it's about like allowing yourself to feel so that you can heal and then thrive. And that is something that I want to start sharing more about, So I guess I'm curious to see if like whoever does watch this podcast, if that is something they're interested in. And
yes,
like,
I
or
am.
like
I'm
different
interested
topics
in that.
because,
yes, I want your
love
book.
talking about healing and just all the ins and outs of it. It's like, I feel like I'm processing it as I'm learning about it too. It's like, it heals me a little more every time. So yeah.
You in the beginning you mentioned that I asked you about music, and you said one of the parts is people relate to you what they got from it.
Yeah.
And that's the heart of a minister right there, dude. That's the heart of somebody that has a calling and a gift, and you genuinely care about people, and you want your gift to help them and increase them. And Jesus is the ultimate gift to transform someone's life and world, and through that love. And you have that gift, dude. And
you're right.
You're so special. You really are, Thea. So release the book. I don't know if you need help doing that. I'll help you. I actually released a book.
Oh, really?
Well,
so
ChatGPT did release the book, but it's not that hard. I did it on Amazon. You can do a paperback, and they just take a percentage of the book, and then they release
print
it on
it
Kindle.
as it.
Yep, everything right away. People can order it day one.
Yeah.
Right away. So.
Okay, well, because I had stopped writing it a few years ago, and then since then I keep thinking of different things that I'm like, ooh, that needs to be in there, and so now I'm like, okay, I put a task for myself to like daily, just slowly finish adding in the things, and then I need to get it proofed, and then, go through the release process. But I'm speaking at a women's conference at the end of the month, and I'm going to be speaking about that. So I think like that's going to force me to kind of solidify those thoughts a little more and be one step closer. And then I'll just keep doing that, until it's, I have the courage to actually release it. Yeah. So, yeah.
That's exciting. Well, this has been wonderful. And I know, so my wife, Jessica, and we have a whole friend, all these women that they're going to embrace you and so much and love you so much because of, and especially if we do a worship night, that'd be so cool.
I know. I would love that.
Yes.
Like we'll have to plan it. That'll be our next thing. We'll plan the worship night.
We'll do that. And we'll record it. We'll set up the cameras. We'll do it. We can do it in my gazebo. I have all these cool hanging lights. We'll do like a little video.
Yeah, that would be so cool.
Maybe acoustic guitar.
Yes. I could even invite a few of my musician friends that are Christians as well, that make it a jam night. Jam session. I mean, I have a ton of guitars too, because my goal was that I would always have jam nights, and then now I have 7 guitars and never have jam nights. So.
Nobody wants to have jam nights. What's the deal?
I don't know. I'm like, where all the people that I used to play music with, they moved away, and so now I'm like, well, that was a waste.
All right, Thea.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes, thank you for having me. Appreciate it.